So what we're going to be covering today, we're going to be going over what are macronutrients, we're going to be going over how to read a food label, how to create a balanced plate, the importance of regular meals and snacks, grocery shopping tips that save time and stress, how to stay on track when eating out, and then we're going to be going over a bonus topic of exercise and nutrition and how to fuel your workouts for better results. And we will be doing a Q&A at the end, so if you guys have any questions as we go throughout the presentation, feel free to write them down. We'll be more than happy to, of course, answer all these questions for you guys at the end. So before we begin, just want to kind of just get a feel for the room. What is your main fitness goal right now? And you guys don't have to go around. Just raise your hand when I say it. But who in here is looking to lose weight? Weight loss is the main goal right now. Awesome. Who in here is looking to build muscle and gain strength? Wow. Awesome. Great. And who in here is looking to just maintain where they're at right now? Okay, we got Mike, 1, 2, awesome, beautiful. Great, we'll break this down for you guys in a little bit. So, getting into it, macronutrients, often called macros, are the nutrients our bodies need in large amounts to function properly throughout the day. And this is going to be your carbohydrates, this is going to be your proteins, and your fats. And they all play a very important role. So, let's be honest, who in here loves carbs? To be honest, raise them up, there we go. So carbs are going to be, I would say, the main energy source for your body throughout the day. These can be found in foods like bread, rice, fruits, and vegetables. Proteins, the building block, this is going to help build and repair tissues like your muscle tissue, your skin, your hair, your nails, and these can be found in meat, beans, eggs, and dairy. And in fats, I know this is what typically people are afraid of, but they play a really, really important role in day-to-day function. They're also going to provide long-term energy, and they're going to help support cells and also hormone production. And these can be found in oils, butters, avocados, and nuts. And the really important thing on the bottom, and we'll talk about this in a moment, macros equal calories. I'm not getting too into this, but 1 gram of protein equals 4 calories. 1 gram of carb equals 4 calories. And 1 gram of fat, when calorie dense, equals 9 calories. And we'll get more into this in a moment.
But then in a more general sense, when we talk about calories, we kind of break them in 3 different categories, starting with your maintenance calories, which is just how many calories are you consuming to maintain your weight. So if you're just eating, and you're maintaining your weight, that would be ideal. The idea is that you're looking at your maintenance calories. It's not an exact number, it's more kind of an average day to day, but that is when we talk about maintenance calories. How much are you eating to just maintain your weight? And then the next, going from there, is the calorie deficit. So when we have your maintenance calories, if anything below that will put you into a calorie deficit, and this is what's needed to actually lose weight. And then the third is the calorie surplus. So if we're looking to gain strength, lean muscle mass, we actually have to be eating slightly more calories than our maintenance. So it's important just to understand that there's different amounts of calories, and when we have no idea, it's hard to work towards specific goals. And then that brings us to, okay, we have a general understanding now of calories. Maybe we'll talk about how many calories, things like that, but how do we bring it into real life? And that is looking at the food that you're actually consuming. And the easiest way to do this is to look at food labels. When you're going to the store and you're looking at things, what are we trying to look at here? Food labels can feel like time consuming, but there's really specific things that we kind of look at. There's 2 parts to each food label. We have the actual nutrient profile. So this is where the calories and the macros come into play. And then we have the ingredient list as well. We'll kind of go into why we look at certain things at each. So the first is the nutrient profile. There's a lot of information here. It can feel like, why am I looking at all this? But I would say there's 4 main things that we would want to look at. The first are the macronutrients, so the total fat, the total carbohydrates, and the total protein. And this will give you a good idea of, is it well balanced? Are there a good amount of each of that in there? And then the other important aspect is the serving size. And this is probably the most important because it's great to look and you might say, oh, this has 230 calories, not bad, let's go for it. But if we're not looking at the serving size, which is, for example, this is 2/3 a cup and we end up having way more than that, then that's not representative of the calorie breakdown there. So the example I always use is the Levy and Larry cookies. So this is a little deceiving because you look at this, on the label it says 16 grams of protein, awesome. If you flip it around, the serving size is at half a cookie. Who's going into this eating a half a cookie? Usually eats the whole thing. So when you look at it and you're like, oh, 220 calories for a cookie, that's awesome. That's only for half. So the whole cookie is 440 calories. So no shade on Levy and Larry's, it's fine. But it's just the aspect of really looking at the nutrition label and realizing, okay, there are serving sizes. So if we're going based on what it's saying, we have to make sure that it's, we're measuring or we're kind of looking at that serving size to determine how much we should be consuming. Then the second part of the label is the ingredients. And this is I try to keep this as simple as possible, that we always strive for an ingredient list that's going to be less ingredients. So when there's 30 ingredients, maybe not the most, nutrient dense item that we could be choosing, and things that we can pronounce. Looking at the ingredients, these are both like pre-packaged cookies, I believe, and just looking at it and being like, okay, I can recognize all those things, there's not a ton of them, versus I think this is like the same type of cookie, just, a different brand, tons of ingredients, tons of preservatives. So it's not to say that once in a while we don't indulge and just eat whatever we want, but for the most part, when we're looking at those labels, okay, we're looking at calories and macros, those things, but we also want to make sure that we're fueling ourselves with, whole foods or things that are going to be nutrient dense that aren't just full of preservatives. And then the last thing about labels I wanted to discuss, because it's a big part of what we're going to talk about, is protein. So people will say, well, how do I know what type of stuff I should have that has protein in it? And the things that are whole foods, so your fish, your chicken, your beef, eggs, those things are lean sources of protein. They're not going to have a nutrition label. But when we're looking at things with nutrition labels, a quick tip, if you want the protein to be at least double the fat, or the fat to be half of what the protein is. So this is, a hot dog, that's a chicken sausage. So you see in one hot dog, there's 15 grams of fat, but only 6 grams of protein. So this wouldn't be considered a lean source of protein or a good source of protein that you would want in your diet, versus a chicken sausage, which only has 5 grams of fat, but 12 grams of protein. So this is just a better lean source of protein, where you're not kind of getting all these extra calories with fat and things, but you're really fueling yourself with the appropriate amount of protein. And then this leads us to the last aspect of okay, we understand calories and how much we should be eating. We understand, kind of how to look at the food that we're purchasing at the grocery store and things like that. How do we create our meals? We know what we should be eating, but how much of it should we? And that comes in with just the idea of the balanced plate, that we want a little bit of everything in each meal. So we want fruits and veggies, we want carbs, we want protein, we want fat, but that's in every meal and snack. And I think it's really common, someone wakes up, they have a bowl of Cheerios with banana. That's like the Western breakfast. That's just carbs. And that's not a bad thing, but there's no fat, there's no protein. So you're gonna, get quick energy, and then you're gonna be hungry in an hour. So it's really best if we're kind of making our plates with breakfast, lunch, dinner, even snacks. Because again, someone's like, oh, I had an apple for a snack. It's not a bad thing, but could we add a little bit of fat and protein to kind of make the snack more balanced? So it's really important that each meal, each snack has a good, is representative of all the macronutrients. Of course, you want your micronutrients too, which is the fruits and veggies. And that is just giving you a really good starting point of a well-balanced diet. And then the other aspect is also, quick protein options. Because even if we're eating about 30 grams of protein, let's say with breakfast, lunch, and dinner, that's a good amount in a meal. But at the end of the day, we're still only at 90 grams of protein, which for some individuals that might be enough. But if we're trying to get, let's say, 120 grams of protein in a day, it's hard to do it with just your main meal. So it's nice when we can have some quick snacks and options like that to kind of make up the rest of the protein for the day. These are things, honestly, that I feel like we always have in the house, even if we're not having it every single day, of just, okay, I'm, running out the door, I need something quick, I'll grab, a cottage cheese or string cheese or whatever it might be, a yogurt, a protein bar, that we're not having them every single day, but it's a good, if I'm just on the run, if we're busy, these are great sources of lean protein that you can kind of fit into your day that doesn't take a ton of extra time.
All right, so before we continue, who here eats 3 square meals a day? Just being honest. All right, so I would say that was less than half of the hands in the room. So 3 square meals a day is like kind of the traditional way of eating, and it's honestly what we recommend to a lot of our clients. And it doesn't have to be exactly 3 square meals a day, nothing else, right? We try to add in maybe a snack in the afternoon, maybe a snack mid-morning, something like that. But the reason that we do tend to go for 3 square meals a day is it's just easier to balance your nutrition out. If you're trying to do some sort of fasting, whether if you wait towards the end of the day or if you wait towards just to have 1 meal a day, it's difficult to get all of your nutrition into just that 1 or 2 meal or just that window. So we really like to balance it out to 3 meals a day. And we're going to get into that in the next slide of why that's important. So eating 3 square meals a day is going to have all of these benefits. So for the first one, it's going to be stable energy levels. So like I said, if you're waiting towards the end of the day to eat most of your calories, in the morning, you're probably going to feel a little bit jittery. You might feel a little bit sluggish because you don't have that energy that's getting right into your system. That's going to be a good breakfast that has a little bit of fiber, has a little bit of protein, has a little bit of carbs, has a little bit of fats. It's going to be a balanced breakfast. That's going to provide you stable energy throughout the day. And when we do that, I'm going to jump down to the last one here, which is preventing overeating. That's one of the, I think, the biggest ones, and one of the ones that we see the most from people who do tend to say like, oh, I'm not going to eat throughout the day, I'm going to save my calories for the end of the day. What happens there is when you skip breakfast, generally you're a little bit hungrier for lunch, where you find yourself running down the snack cupboard, running down the break room at lunch or out in the office and grabbing snacks. And you don't even think about that, but those calories add up towards the end of the day. Versus if you would have more of a balanced approach where you're eating a breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you're not going to be as hungry in between meals because you're going to have that fuel in your system. Your brain's not going to be constantly thinking about food. Your stomach's not going to be rumbling. You're going to be able to focus. You're not going to be thinking about food all the time, and it's going to prevent you from overeating those calories when you save them up for the end of the day. And then you eat a big meal and you're like, I'm still hungry. Why are you so hungry? Because you saved those calories for the end of the day. And your body's like, I still need to get this nutrition and fuel my body properly to have my brain function, to have my organs function, to have all these things. So it's going to be wanting that sweet treat after dinner. It's going to be wanting that extra food. It's going to be craving those salty foods because it's trying to get in that extra nutrition. Where if you would just take in like that more of a balanced approach, eating throughout the day, it's going to prevent you from actually overeating. So it's a little bit counterintuitive to what you might think, where you're saying, oh, I'm actually eating more, that's going to cause me to eat less. But it really does work out that way. We see that when we work with all of our clients. Which also leads into the second point, which is better metabolism. So better metabolism, one, because you're not going to be overeating, it's going to cause you to lose weight. But if you're able to fuel yourself properly, you're going to be getting enough protein, you're going to be getting enough carbs and fats that's going to give you that energy that you can actually put towards your workouts and put towards your daily activity. One thing we find with people is that when we work with them, if they were under eating, so if they were eating less calories than maybe they should to fuel their metabolism properly or just to fuel their life properly, they're going to have lower energy. And it makes sense, right? Because food gets broken down into energy. So if you're eating less energy throughout the day, you're going to have less energy. So your output is going to be lower. You're not going to want to go on walks. You're not going to want to go to the gym. You're not going to want to park farther away and get more steps in throughout the day. You're not going to stand up on phone calls and walk around because you're going to be tired because you're eating less. Your metabolism is going to drop. And then also with that, it's going to improve your focus, mood, and balance out your blood sugar. So we've all experienced being hangry, right? Being hungry from not eating. You lose focus. The last thing, food is on your mind constantly. The last thing you want to do is have a conversation with somebody because you're just focused on food. And so when you have these balanced meals throughout the day, it's going to take that focus less away from food and more on what you're doing because you can focus on the task at hand rather than your brain and your stomach, both of them being connected, pointing you always to wanting to go towards the next meal, thinking about the next meal. If you have a balanced approach, it's going to keep you full and keep you satiated. You're going to be able to focus on what you're doing and not be constantly thinking about food. And then balancing your blood sugar, if any of you have any experience, maybe you're pre-diabetic, maybe you have to be thinking about your blood sugar, maybe you are a current diabetic, Taylor's definitely the expert there and can tell you more about that. But just balancing your blood sugars is going to be super crucial when it comes to having stable energy levels throughout the day. Because just like I talked about earlier, if you're having those bigger meals where you're fasting and then eating later in the day, your body's not going to be able to handle that huge carb load of 60, 70, 80 grams of carbs because you're trying to get in all the nutrients that you didn't have throughout the day. And that's when you experience those crashes. So if you ever have those big, super huge breakfasts in the morning, like we always love to do Saturday, what's the next thing you want to do? Go to bed, lay down and take a nap because you're getting all that food in your system and your body's like, I can't handle this right now. I got to dump all my energy into digesting that food, pumping the insulin out, like recovering from that big meal. And so we want to spread that food throughout the day so your body can produce, you can digest that food in a timely manner. It can give you stable energy levels and just give you kind of a better overall nutrient profile throughout your day.
Also wanted to quickly give some grocery shopping tips because I think too sometimes if we're going to the grocery shop and we just grocery shop like we normally would, sometimes it's hard to think differently or be like, oh, what should I be buying? What should I be avoiding? Some tips and tricks there. I'm a big list girl, so I love making a list before I go to the grocery store. It's so helpful. So I take maybe 5 to 10 minutes. I think about, okay, what are the meals that I'm going to eat this week? You don't necessarily have to eat the same thing every day if you don't want to, but just kind of think, okay, breakfast, here are 2 or 3 options I'll have, lunch, dinner, and then I make a list of all the foods that I'm going to need. One, it's more cost effective because I'm not just buying random stuff that I don't end up eating or might go bad, but then I make sure I have enough food for the week too, because sometimes, I know this happens sometimes still to us, we'll get to Thursday and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, we're out of the dinner that we prepped, or making sure that I have enough for the entire week really just sets us up for success to make sure that we have what we need, but not too much or things that are just going to go to waste. And then other little tips is we always try to buy in-season produce. So it's going to be the most abundant at that time. It's usually really, fresh and good as well. So it's going to be more abundant and it's just cheaper. We know produce is expensive, but it's important that we have it. So we always try to go towards the in-season produce. Also frozen produce. So like especially, green beans, broccoli, things like that. Usually I do end up buying them frozen. The nutrient profile, they really do retain the nutrients. So we don't have to be like, well, fresh is so much better. It really isn't. There's studies that show that it's really retaining most of the nutrition. And if anything, it just has a longer shelf life. It's convenient because it's right there when you need it. So I'm a big fan of frozen produce as well. And then also going for the store brands. A generic is going to be the same probably as a store brand, but it's just going to be cheaper, and it's going to be something that, when we talk about healthy living, people say, well, it's so expensive, groceries are so expensive. So these are just some of the tips that we like to give to help make it a little bit more financially feasible while still prioritizing, the healthy food that we talk about.
Eating out. So we always preach balance and flexibility, right? We know with that sometimes it's going to involve going out to your favorite restaurant. Maybe you're on the go, you don't have a good healthy meal with you, so you're looking at Chick-fil-A, big Chick-fil-A guy, Wendy's, McDonald's, all that good stuff. So we just want to share some points, tips, and tricks for you guys when it comes to potentially eating out. So what I always preach and what we practice ourselves, if you know you're going to be going out to a restaurant, happy hour, again, just any sort of food location, always do your best to look at the menu ahead of time. 9 times out of 10, these restaurants are going to have the menu online. And you can scope everything out in regards to what you potentially want to have for an appetizer, your entree, maybe you want to have a few drinks and whatnot. But I always say, when it's planned, it's prioritized. So a lot of the times, if you go into the plan, it's going to be much easier to, of course, go in there with confidence and be able to stick to that in regards to, hey, I'm going to order, this is an appetizer, it's going to be a good protein source, I'm going to get this for my dinner, grilled chicken maybe, grilled chicken sandwich, grilled chicken salad type of thing. Just really, again, like Taylor mentioned, a good balanced plate is what we want to go for too when it comes to eating out. And it's just so much easier if you're going to spend the time to look at the menu ahead of time, just go in there with confidence knowing what you're going to order. But I know sometimes when it comes to fast food establishments, it's going to be a little bit different, right? So same situation. We always kind of encourage those that we work with to try to go towards the grilled options when it comes to fast food establishments. And I know sometimes they have them, sometimes they don't. But a lot of the times, we'll share this resource with you guys. We actually built out a fast food guide for our clients that has well over 20 establishments with things that you guys can order that are under, I think it's 500 calories, but very well balanced. So I'll send that resource out to you guys after that. That way you guys can kind of have more of an example of what the menus look like and what you guys could order. But sticking with grilled options is great. Sugary drinks, again, if you guys are able to opt in for a diet soda as compared to a regular soda, game changer. That's going to be saving you guys so many calories right there. So that will be a really helpful thing you guys can do as well. At restaurants, you're going to have more of an opportunity to do this as compared to McDonald's, but being able to load vegetables, high volume food, not a lot of calories. So a great way to, again, kind of trick your body in a sense that you're going to be kind of filling it up more. But to Andrew's point, just kind of feeling, again, satiated throughout the day is always going to be helpful when it comes to those outside meals. Choosing condiments and dressing wisely. This is where it gets a little bit difficult, because a lot of the times if you guys order something at a restaurant, they're going to be putting either the dressing or the condiment on that meal, right? If you are able to opt for that on the side and kind of put that on yourself so you're not loading and drenching it on there, that'll be really helpful. And also pick healthier sides. And again, that kind of goes back to the point of just looking at the menu ahead of time, just kind of seeing what side options they have there, and being able to kind of go back to our point, is make sure it's going to be a good nutrient-dense food is going to be the way to go. Tips and tricks. So we're each going to take a point here, and I would say, starting things off for the 80-20 rule, this is something, again, that we try to practice ourselves. We literally, for everyone that we talk to, we really encourage this. It's so easy when an individual gets up and running with a health and fitness journey, again, kind of start on their whole nutrition journey, to want to be 100%, right? In regards to, hey, I'm doing this, I'm excited about it, I'm going to be all in on this. Chasing that 100% all the time, it can be a little overwhelming. It can be discouraging because it's not, I would say, super realistic. So what we typically suggest is to be on your game 80% of the time. What I mean by this, be mindful when it comes to your eating 80% of the time, but also give yourself that extra 20% to be able to relax and enjoy some of your favorite foods. So if you guys are on your game 80% of the time, you're still going to be able to make amazing progress when it comes to your health and fitness journey. And again, we see it all the times for individuals that we work with that are just so excited to get up and running with a program that, again, we try to talk them off the sledge, but they just want to go at it 100%. And when you do that with a diet, don't get me wrong, yes, it is doable, but a lot of the times it could lead to that whole restrictive mindset in regards to that I can't eat off the plan, I can't enjoy a cookie from time to time. Again, that restriction is going to lead to an individual not to enjoy what they're doing, and a lot of times if they're not enjoying it, they're not going to stick with it long term. So being able to, again, utilize the 80-20 rule in regards to being on plan 80% of the time and giving yourself that 20% wiggle room and flexibility is a really helpful way to stay consistent long term.
Yeah, so the next one's going to be meal prepping for convenience. And Taylor touched on this a little bit, really utilizing a pre-planned grocery list, kind of planning out with either yourself or your spouse, what can we do to prepare these meals in advance so we have stuff that's there, ready to make, ready that we can pop in the microwave, pop in the oven, pop in the air fryer, whatever it is, to have your meals ready to go for the week. Or even just for the day, depending on how much you want to prep in advance. But it's just so much more helpful rather than getting to, I know since my wife and I, it's always like Sunday night, if we were busy over the weekend, it's like, what are we going to do during the day for Monday? Are we going to have to go pick something up in the morning? Are we going to have to order food? Having it so you can prep your meals in advance is just going to set yourself up for success so much more. Because you can control those portions, you can control the calories, you can control how much protein goes into each meal. It's going to just help you set you up for whatever your goals are, whether that's building muscle or losing weight. It's just going to be the best option. One, for convenience, it's going to save you time because you don't have to cooking every meal, you don't have to do dishes every meal. But then two, it's just going to be just so much more convenient for those healthy decisions that you can make.
I also always say, we get home from work and the first thing is we have to go to the snack cabinet because we're so hungry while we're making dinner. I could be consuming 200, 300 calories just by snacking while I'm making dinner. So at least for me, it's really helpful if I can go home, I'm starving, my meal's ready. I heat it up, or even if it's just the protein's ready. Okay, chicken's prepped, I put it in the crock pot, shredded chicken for the week. Monday we did tacos. Tuesday we did a barbecue pulled chicken, so even just having certain items prepped ahead of time will really help you from kind of mindlessly snacking because the meal's ready when you're hungry, you eat it, and then you feel full and you're ready to move on. The last tip is just to start small. So it can feel overwhelming, and sometimes maybe you guys are doing some of these things, maybe there are things that you aren't doing yet, but kind of choosing 1 or 2 habits to work on at a time. Because just like Matt said, I always think about New Year's resolutions and January 1st. When we say, okay, there's 10 things I need to do, and we just jump full force into trying to do all 10, it's gonna feel so overwhelming. We're definitely gonna feel burnt out. So picking and choosing, 2 habits that I'm gonna work on these, the rest I'm not gonna worry about right now. And then kind of building on those habits where, okay, down pat, I'm doing well with my grocery shopping list, I'm doing well meal prepping. Now I'm gonna think about when I eat out, is there a game plan for that? But starting small is only gonna help you maintain the new habits that you're trying to work on versus trying to do them all at once, feeling discouraged because we can't do them all at once, and then kind of giving up, be like, well, this isn't working for me. Versus if you had started smaller and kind of working at one habit, once you feel confident with that, add another habit at that time. And then by the time you know it, you're 2-3 months in, and your lifestyle is just so much different than maybe before you started that journey.
I would say too, a lot of the times for individuals that we work with, it's to Taylor's point, the habits are so simple. Let's get some more sleep, let's get some more steps, let's drink some more water, and for a lot of people, it's lower your stress levels. Those simple things make such a big role if you're looking to lose weight, if you're looking to gain strength, build muscle, such a big role. People don't realize that, right? So a lot of the times, that's what we focus on with them, and kind of to Andrew's point, is have them start eating 3 balanced meals throughout the day. People think they have to kind of go fully on plan, hey, I got to have 5 meals a day, I got to do all these different things, but being able to focus on those little habits and is starting to fueling your body properly throughout the day with 3 balanced meals, game changer for both weight loss and for building strength and muscle.
Yeah.
So starting there is such a great place to focus on.
All right, so kind of the last little bonus slide here, we're going to talk about exercise and nutrition, how to combine those 2 together to really get the most out of your workouts and to live just an overall healthier life. And this is a topic that's super passionate for me, so I could go on forever. So if I do start just rambling, just throw something at me or something.
The computer shuts off. That's when your time.
This is you start random, just throw something at me. Yeah, cut me off. But yeah, so exercise and diet, and I'm going to specifically talk about exercise, mainly focusing on strength training, because I feel like a lot of us, it's very popular to go to the gym and do a lot of cardio, and that is a very beneficial thing, and everyone should be doing that for their heart health. But we're going to focus specifically on strength training for this. Strength training being lifting weights, not just going to classes and stuff that are going to have your heart rate high and kind of use lighter weights and bands and stuff like that, but really getting into the gym, utilizing the racks, utilizing the machines, utilizing the dumbbells, all sorts of things that are going to help you build muscle and just put on muscle mass onto your frame. And so we're going to go over some of the benefits for that. So I always say that strength training is the key to longevity, right? It's going to help fight off all of those things. It's going to help your joint health. It's going to create better and healthier bone density. So all the lifting that you do, if you're lifting weights, it's going to create stress on your body. Your body's response to that, actually creating healthier and denser, stronger bones. So once you get older, as we age, if you ever happen to have a fall, if you were someone who lifted weights throughout your life, you're less likely to break a bone. You're less likely to come away from that with an injury that's going to prevent you from being active for the rest of your life. So it's also going to help fight sarcopenia. Does anyone know what sarcopenia is? It's basically age-related muscle loss. So we see that basically from the time we turn 30 years old until, for the rest of your life, you slowly lose muscle mass. And that's mainly because most people aren't as active as they should be. So they're going to be, if they played sports growing up, if they were fairly active, they'd probably build a little bit of muscle mass. But if you stop lifting weights and you stop playing those sports, you're going to start losing that muscle mass as you age. And that is what causes your metabolism to drop, it causes your bone density to go away, it causes you to have issues with your joints, and all sorts of other things. So we're really trying to fight that. And we really want to kind of strength train as much as we can in order to keep all of those things and keep those benefits that we can get from strength training. So we know we talked about this from the nutrition side of things. So how should you be fueling those workouts that you're going to be doing when you're out there in the gym, lifting weights, using the bands, using the cables, using all the machines? You want to focus on carbohydrate intake, hydration, and getting adequate protein levels throughout the day. So the first one there, carbohydrate intake. This is super important because carbs are your body's preferred fuel source. So I always like to say, if you're someone who works out in the morning, it's very popular to just get up, go to the gym, being in a fasted state. A lot of people like doing either fasted cardio or fasted lifting, they just feel better. But I always encourage people to just have at least 20, 30 grams of carbs maybe. If that's too much for you, cut it down to 15 grams of carbs. But it's going to be very beneficial. You're going to notice the benefits from it because your body is going to use that right away. If you're waking up and going right to the gym, you're probably in a fasted state from anywhere from 8 to 10 hours. So your body's going to have some stored glycogen in your muscles, some source of stored carbs and sugars, but it's going to just benefit you. It's going to help wake your body up. Your brain's going to use that blood sugar, pump it into your muscles, and you're going to have higher energy, better energy, which I'm going to get into later down in the why. But the carbohydrate intake is super crucial. And if that's maybe for morning workouts, if you're going to have a real small meal, I would encourage people to have lean carbs, not a whole lot of added dietary fats, not a whole lot of added protein, and then getting some hydration in right away too. I know this is like the hard one for me, is like getting enough hydration in before my workout, especially if it's a morning one. If it's later on in the day, you want to focus on your steady balanced meals throughout the day, getting adequate levels of water in there, and then getting your adequate protein levels. We always talk about, has anyone ever heard of the anabolic window? It's basically getting in enough protein within about an hour after your workout. It's not always the most important thing in the world, but you will notice you're going to recover better. You're probably going to build a little bit more muscle. You're probably going to get a little bit more out of your workout if you're able to balance that, or if you're able to get enough protein, enough carbs in your system pre and post workout. But when we talk about adequate protein levels, that just basically means getting your adequate protein, the total number throughout the day. So like Taylor mentioned, we try to split it up from anywhere from 30 to 40 grams a meal, and then maybe some small snacks in between the day, between meals throughout the day, so you're able to get that higher number throughout the day. If you're able to do that, you're going to be getting enough protein that's going to be fueling your workouts. You're going to be able to get enough protein that's going to help you build that muscle. It's going to break down into amino acids, help to repair the muscle that you damaged throughout the workout, and build new muscle tissue. So why should you be doing this? Why do you need to focus on your nutrition when you're combining it with your exercise? If you focus on having adequate, better than adequate nutrition, you're going to have more energy and you're going to recover better. So you're going to have more energy, which means you're going to get more out of your workouts. If you're going into a workout where you're feeling sluggish, you're feeling tired, you don't have a lot of fuel in your body, you're not going to want to be there. You're going to be able to perform less reps. You're going to be able to perform for less time, less intensity. You're not going to be able to move as much weight unless you're dropping your capacity to build muscle and build strength and build endurance, all of those things. So you're just going to feel way better, you're going to perform better, and you're going to see faster results. And the last thing I want to touch on that is if you aren't getting enough food throughout the day, after you work out, even though you did a good thing, you're probably going to feel a lot more tired after your workout if you don't have that adequate nutrition, because your body's going to be trying to pull from its resources, and if it doesn't have a lot of resources in that system, in your stomach, or either in your stored glycogen in your muscles, it's going to start pulling from wherever it can, and that's going to cause you to feel sluggish, feel tired, get a lot of focus. So getting that adequate nutrition in is just going to help you feel so much more better throughout the day, which all comes back to kind of what we were talking about with increasing your nutrition.
A great carb source that you guys can have before, and something as simple as a rice cake. 12 grams of carbs. That's something really easy that you can have, like driving over here in the morning. Fruit too is a great option.
Yeah, we always just if you're not hungry in the morning, that's time to choose like your favorite like sugary like snack. Like we were just joking, like in college we would always like split a pack of Pop-Tarts or like Rice Krispie treats. And like it sounds like whoa, like that's not great. But like in the morning, like we both played sports in college, like trying to get something in quick before like a morning workout or a morning practice. Like those are the things you mentioned. It's easy to digest, it's quick carbs, and it's gonna make you feel much better than you would if you just roll out of bed and go fasting. So you would say seriously, yeah, seriously, that's a good one. Yeah, those workouts, especially like. Yeah,
I used to go to BJ's to get a massive box of Rice Krispie treats. That was my thing. I read the morning workouts. So, but again, there's 23 grams of carbs. It's great. So,
but yeah, guys, that pretty much wraps everything up. We do have time for some Q&A. If anything pops up, whether it was related to exercise, nutrition, anything that pops up, we're an open book. So feel free to raise your guys' hands. If there's any questions?
Yeah.
yes,
Touch upon empty calories.
empty calories.
So what do you mean by that?
So like,
Well, I've heard the term empty calories.
Yeah,
I'm
so-
not sure. I'm thinking it's a lot of bread from Wendy's or McDonald's.
Yeah, so when
French fries.
I think of the term empty calories, I think of foods that aren't super micronutrient dense. So maybe they don't have a lot of added vitamins and minerals. And I think it's a term that's almost like a marketing term to kind of push people towards certain foods. Maybe it's not as much food as you think, because like, we incorporate breads, pastas, rices, maybe things that people might think are quote unquote empty calories. But yeah, I think it mainly does relate to foods that aren't super micronutrient dense. So like you said, sometimes fast food, it's going to be higher in dietary fats, maybe not from the best fat sources, and it's maybe going to be higher in calories because of those. It's going to be, like you said, a lot of just like foods that aren't super filling and they're not super micronutrient dense. That's what I think that's when I hear empty calories.
from like a medical professional standpoint, it's also like that example when we say like don't drink sugary drinks. So like regular Gatorades or regular soda. Those are truly empty calories. There's nothing else included in that. There's no fat, there's no protein, there's no micronutrients. So like a regular Coke is the epitome of an empty calorie because you're getting all these calories without any other benefit than just like a big sugar rush. So when I think of like empty calories, I always think of like sodas or things that are really high calorie and don't have any benefit to begin with, really.
Yeah, or even just like filling you up, like just from like a volume standpoint, like you can think of it like empty because it's not giving you any like satiety in your stomach to help fill you up. That's a good way to do it too.
But not so much, I would say, like breads, pastas, those are all like a good part of a healthy diet. Now, like, there are ones with higher fiber and things like that, but I think more of just like, high calorie and like no nutrients.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it.
Does that make sense?
Love it.
Awesome. Great. And we hear that a lot with drinking alcohol.
Yeah.
We have a lot of people like, oh, it's like, I'm getting 200, but 1 gram of alcohol is 7 calories, right? Because a lot of times people are like, oh, it's empty calories, it's empty calories. I'm like,
it is.
It is, but
it's not. There's no benefit to alcohol. That's out of your body.
but you just want to be aware that it does contain calories, and you should plan for that as much as you can. So,
Yes.
Do you have plans or anything that work with weight loss tests?
yes.
Yeah. We have a good amount.
Good amount of clients.
Yeah, or more so recently, I would say that either people that are currently on it, about to start it, or also coming off of it. People coming off of weight loss, it's really important because, we're trying to navigate, how your body's going to respond, but we do have a handful of people that are on it, and it really works cohesively because, ideally in the market of weight loss medications, you have to also be able to change your habits and things like that if you want the results to be long-term. Because the minute you stop, a GLP-1, for example, if you haven't changed anything about your lifestyle or your habits, you are going to gain all the weight back, if not more. So you can pair the med to also making those healthy lifestyle choices. That is like the golden ticket that you're going to lose weight, but also be able to maintain it, which people don't always talk about the maintaining part, in the medical field when they're just talking about the med.
It's like, for example, I'm on Zepbound, and I've been taking it since January.
Okay.
And yes, I'm eating smaller portions, but I'm also eating a little bit more during the day. Like you said, the snacks, the afternoon maybe, or your 3 meals. And I'm down 60 pounds.
Yeah, that's great.
Amazing.
Yeah, but those lifestyle changes, because let's say you were to stop it eventually, these habits that you're forming
I'm
now.
not stopping.
Yeah, and like even just like weight training to be able to preserve your muscle, because certain meds like that, if you're not weight training, a lot of times you end up losing almost 50% lean muscle and 50% fat loss. So we see all this weight loss, it's amazing, but we want to make sure it's a greater portion of fat that you're losing compared to losing lean muscle, which is, good for you.
I have one more question. Like you said, mentioned Chick-fil-A. I'm a big Chick-fil-A guy too. It's not getting more healthier than anything else. But like, you get the chicken sandwich. Do you get it with the bread or without the bread?
So I get it with
I
the
hear
bread.
different things on that.
I personally get it with the bread.
Okay.
So the thing with Chick-fil-A is we either utilize that for a weekly cheat meal. So every single week, like Taylor and I, we'll go and get one meal that we don't worry about. Like whether we went to Blue Plate last night. We went to William Heritage, got some wine, went to Blue Plate afterwards, and again, we didn't worry about that. It was just an enjoyable time for us. But for Chick-fil-A, either utilize that as a cheat meal, or the great thing with Chick-fil-A is they literally have all the nutrition facts online. So like when I go to Chick-fil-A and I'm going to fit it into my day-to-day, I literally will just go plan for that as best as I can. Because if you go on there, the whole nutrition labels there, regards, hey, it's going to be this much carbs, this much fat. So I always do. The bread's delicious. A nice butter roll, a nice buttered bun there, so good. But I plan for that as best as I can in my day-to-day when it comes to like my macros and my diet.
The bread is not the enemy. We like bread. It fuels our body well.
Delicious.
It's more so, what are you having with it? Are you having 3 packs of the Chick-fil-A sauce that has like 14 grams of fat per pack? This is when it starts adding calories, when we're thinking about the sauces, the fried versus the grilled. Are we having fries or maybe a side salad? Like, side salads can have way less calories. So it's not so much, the bread, like, let's have it without the bread. It's really what else is making up the meal that you're having, where the sandwich, a grilled chicken sandwich with bread, that's awesome. Like, you could have that probably every day and still make progress. It's more so, what are you getting with it? That kind of that can determine, is this going to support my goals, or maybe make it a little bit harder to achieve them.
And the Chick-fil-A is the best food guide that I'll send out to you guys.
Yeah.
There's a ton about Chick-fil-A is a great spot. There's a lot of great things you guys get at Chick-fil-A that are really, I would say, balanced in regards to good protein, carbs, and fats, and again, calories are in a great spot. So,
Thank you.
of course, yeah.
Do you guys have any opinions about the size of a breakfast versus lunch versus dinner? Like you hear different things like, hey, eat breakfast like a king and lunch like a queen and dinner like a pauper or whatever.
I'll touch on that. I think it all depends on the individual, right? So like I have a person, just a client that just started this week, right? She has a meal route. So she's walking like 10 to 15,000 steps a day. And I have her eating a pretty big breakfast because she's like, I don't have any way to keep my food warm throughout the day. So I'm just snacking throughout the day. So she has a big breakfast. She has minimal food throughout the day. And she has a pretty big dinner because we're trying to balance out her calories throughout the day. But if we have someone who works just like a typical office job and maybe they're going in the morning, they can get a smaller breakfast that's going to help keep them full, and they have an average size lunch, an average size dinner. It's just whatever works for you throughout the day, but it definitely comes down to the individual. So that's what we like. That's like the fun part of coaching is like figuring out what works best for the person depending on their schedule and depending on what's going to work best for them. Maybe they have a family that they're super busy with. Maybe they're an individual that can have meals whenever they want. They work from home themselves. It just all depends on the time.
And along the lines of figuring out what's best for the individual, do you have rules of thumb when you're thinking about average daily protein intake based on the person's goals? Like, okay, they're trying to build muscle or not, their X size or not, their X age or not. Like, how many inputs go into that equation for you?
There's a lot. And again, like I said, if you guys are interested in learning more about that, like, please stop by the table. We can help you guys with this. But there's so many factors, variables that go into just in general how much protein you should be consuming, but also how many calories. Again, age, activity level, gender, lifestyle, past dieting history, like hormones play a huge role. And I say past dieting history because a lot of the times people that try to diet, their metabolism might not be in the best place. We have to take that into consideration. But really when it comes to overall protein intake, it really is specific to the individual and their goal. For females, we're going to be a little bit more mindful of this. Taylor can definitely go into some more detail as compared to a male that is looking to, of course, build some quality muscle and gain some strength. But it really, I would say, depends on the individual and what they're looking to do.
Yeah, and there is the common you should be eating about 1 pound. It's actually per kilogram of lean body mass.
Lean's big.
Yeah, and that's the big part is we might have an individual, but let's say they're 30%, they have like 30% body fat. We don't count that weight in what their protein should be. So like someone's like, I weigh 200 pounds, so I can eat 200 grams of protein. I'm like, absolutely not. We're looking at lean body mass. Now, if we have someone like Matt that's like jacked and like 200 pounds, let's say, just example, he might actually be closer to 200 grams of protein because it is lean. So that is something that some people get nervous. They're like, wow, like I can't imagine eating that much protein. And a lot, it's usually more than what they're currently eating, but maybe not as high as what they would think, they would have to be eating. But it is, important. But it is really just based on the amount of muscle that you have.
And I will say too, like with our coaching, the biggest thing is like we do weekly check-ins with everybody we work with, right? So we get feedback in regards to how their body's responding, in regards to like, you know, just what that general response is going to be. Are they feeling hungry throughout the day? How are their workouts going? How's their recovery? All that stuff. So a lot of the times as we do these weekly check-ins with them, we're adjusting the macros. You know, sometimes their body's giving us signals that they need more carbs, so we increase their carbs. Sometimes their body's giving us signals that we need to increase their protein, so we do so. So we never say there's like never a magic number that we go for. It really is really how that body is responding, and more so what can we do with them to look to adjust those calories and macros. So.
Yep.
You mentioned that carbs in the morning, like you go to the gym in the morning, like you get the escape. You said, what about in the afternoon or later in the evening, like say after shift or after work? You know, should you be doing something like that again, or are the carbs that you're eating throughout the day good enough before your workout?
Yeah, so what you just said is great. If you have the ability to eat throughout the day, and this comes down to kind of like tracking a little bit, kind of knowing what you're eating. So if you know that, hey, you know, I'm getting about 200 grams of carbs a day total, but I'm eating and I'm working out in the afternoon, so maybe by that point I've had about 120 grams of carbs, something like that. That's probably enough. That's probably going to be adequate. You're going to have enough fuel that's stored in your muscles to be able to complete that workout well. Now, for me personally, I don't know if this is a mental thing from doing it forever, but I love having just like a quick something like, you know, I would say within 30 minutes before my workout is like that's when I like kind of cut off food, so I'm not my stomach's not digesting it as I'm lifting weights, so the blood's not going to my stomach instead of going to my muscles. But I like to have anywhere from 15 to 30 grams of carbs before my workout, even if I do have food throughout the day. One, I feel like just the intensity that I work out at.
So it wouldn't hurt.
We said
So it wouldn't hurt.
No.
it definitely wouldn't hurt. You'll definitely only get the benefits from it. It's just something that you should be fitting into your overall calories throughout the day.
Whereas I like usually go like after lunch, I'll have my lunch, like I'm working for like an hour and then I'll go, so I don't necessarily eat anything more. And that's more so just thinking about overall calories as well. I'm like, I'm eating enough calories in my main meals, my snack afterwards, and I'm like, I'm not necessarily feel like I have to add something else.
It
But
just depends on time.
yeah.
Yeah. What's the role of supplements, probiotics with this, especially for weight loss goals, managing blood sugar, inflammation, all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
insulin resistance?
I would say supplements are a nice add-on. You will usually, if you have a well-balanced diet, you are going to get most of what you need in your food, or it's best because it's most bioavailable. Supplements, you want to buy ones that are most bioavailable, but they're still not as good as if you would have gotten vitamin C, but like, you know, vitamins through your food. But it's a great add-on, and it's only going to help at the end. Like, the big ones that like we recommend for basically everyone is a good multivitamin, a good probiotic, and a good probiotic. And the gut does play a huge role in weight loss, and fiber plays a big role in that as well. And I think fiber is really underappreciated, but fiber plays a huge role. Blood sugar balance, also just your gut health. Like, if your gut is not doing well, your body is going to be in not a great place to be able to lose weight. So sometimes we have individuals that come and they're doing everything right and they're not losing weight, and then we start looking into like some of the habits, some things that they're doing that might be working against their gut health. They're not really paying attention to fiber, they're not on a supplement. We make those small changes, they're feeling better because they don't feel bloated or uncomfortable and things like that, and now all of a sudden they're losing weight again. So I do think that it's an important thing to talk about when we're talking about overall nutrition, but it's not make or break. If you're getting adequate nutrition and adequate vitamins and minerals throughout your food, then it should be enough. But we take multivitamins, we take a probiotic. I think gut health is kind of a different conversation, and that's really important compared to just overall, nutrients and things. So we could do a whole presentation on probably just gut health.
They say it's the second brain, and there's so much truth.
Yeah, even your immune system comes from your gut. Like, there's so many things that gut health is so important. And then as far as blood sugar balance, that really comes from fiber and balanced meals. If someone is pre-diabetic or has diabetes, the biggest thing, it's not just, let's slash your carbs. That is one approach, but you don't have to do that. It's, let's make sure your meals are balanced. Let's make sure we're not eating fruit by itself. Fruit is great, but it's very high in carbs, and that will cause a blood sugar spike. Even if you don't have diabetes, it might. Whereas if you put, some peanut butter on it, or you had an egg with it, that's going to help level out your blood sugar compared to if you were just having it, fruit by itself, even, a healthy food.
Yeah, I'd say last thing with that is it's super individualistic. So we like to recommend to our clients maybe once a year, blood panel to kind of see what they're lacking. Because someone might need a vitamin D supplement, someone who works outside, they might need that. They might not need that. So it just all comes down to the person, and you can figure out what you need. If you're iron deficient, vitamin K, like whatever it is. Everyone's going to be different with that. It comes down to your genetics, your heritage, like all sorts of different things. So we just recommend either consulting with your doctor, figuring out what's missing, but if you have that healthy, balanced diet approach, it's going to cover most of your bases, and all the rest of that is like, it's in the name, it's just a supplement. So, anything else? Yeah, Mike?
How do you guys think about recovery after exercise in terms of protein intake or nutrition thereafter? Right? So we talked a lot about what you want to eat before a workout. What about after a workout?
Yeah, so after, we talk about like the golden anabolic window. So anabolic just means the state of your body that's going to be building muscle. It's going to be favorable to build muscle. And after you work out, your body's kind of like a sponge, like a squeezed out sponge, right? All the nutrients are kind of used during that workout, used throughout the day. Now your body's in a really good spot to uptake nutrients. So we try and tell people within an hour if you can. One is because I feel like if I wait longer than an hour after a workout, sometimes I might just slip my mind. I start working, I don't get in, and then I'm like, crap, I need to get a ton of food in my system. But then two, it's just going to help that recovery process start a little bit faster. So the faster you can get it in, mainly carbs and protein. Fats are going to be important as well, but mainly carbs and protein because your body's in that depleted state. Your muscles are going to be ready to shuttle that muscle or those carbs into your system and start that recovery process. But if you like to say, don't change a ton of stuff to hit that within an hour. I have people being like, oh, I was late to work today because I had to drive to the gas station to get a protein shake because I didn't want to waste my workout. You're not going to waste your workout, but it's just going to help that recovery process start a little bit faster and maybe get a little bit more benefit out of that. But we do really just encourage people to shoot for that overall number throughout the day.
Yeah, carbs and protein afterwards. Fat delays the absorption of carbohydrates. So if you're having a very high fat before or after, your body has a harder time actually using the carbs efficiently. So that's why we kind of try to avoid fat. The rest of the day, we want those healthy fats. But before and after workouts, we try to avoid overly fatty items just because it delays your body being able to use the carbohydrates for the energy that it needs in real time.
Yeah, the last thing to say on that is recovery starts during your workout. So not doing a workout that's too intense that you can't recover from. Not working out 7 days a week. Not doing exercise that is going to put you out for the rest of the day. Just working out to an intensity level that you're going to have the ability to recover from. It really does start there. Anything else? Yeah.
Are you strictly calorie based, or are you willing to work with people that are committed to Weight Watchers to enhance what they're already doing?
So I don't know if we're strictly calorie based, but we do base everything off of calories because that's what's going to determine weight loss. So Weight Watchers works off a similar system, but I'll say the Weight Watchers system has its benefits as well. But we do take a calorie-based approach, but we're not just telling people a certain number of calories and macros to eat. We like to really work off of meal plans. So we'll be able to build people out meal plans with 5-6 options for breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks that they can utilize and pick what they want to be able to have their favorite foods, have their favorite meals that they're going to enjoy. But I think we have worked with some people that utilize different weight loss systems. Was it New York Weight Watchers stuff in the past? But they're all just systems of basically calorie counting and different ways of labeling those foods with certain calories, whether you're associating a number or a score, or whether you're associating the calories with them, it's still calories. So we just feel that the calorie-based approach is a slightly more accurate approach so we can find out exactly what you're eating, whether if you're eating certain foods that have low scores for Weight Watchers still have calories. So if people are eating a ton of those items, they might not be counting those calories properly. So we like to be able to judge what's going on so we can make adjustments and we can get you the results that you want.
Yeah. And Weight Watchers, they changed it in the last few years, so I'm not sure if you've done it for a long time. But recently they started coming out with 0-point foods, bananas, whole eggs. So people, just like Andrew said, they're like, oh, this is 0 points. I'm gonna have 5 eggs in the day and 3 bananas, and it's 0 points. Those foods still contain calories. So I have a little bit of beef with Weight Watchers, just the upgrade, because of those 0 points. And it's so hard, if you understand, calories and those things, I think that it's, you understand that. Someone's not, but I spoke with a client that she didn't know that. So she's just been overeating, and they're healthy foods, but they're 0 points. And I'm like, these still, contain calories.
They emphasize in the meetings than quantity.
Yeah,
So I'm not going to go in a 5 day.
totally. Yeah.
I mean, so,
Yeah.
and you're 3 ounces of protein.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah. It's really about creating that balance. It's just, you know, a different approach than.
It's points
Yes.
versus calories.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have a family plan. We have 2 sons in their 20s. One's in Pennsylvania, one's at Coastal Carolina University. He back up in their 20s. So this is a great presentation. Is there, we would like to go over like a slide with them or something as like a family discussion.
Yeah.
Is it going to be available?
Yep, so I've recorded everything. I'm going to put it on YouTube. Mike has the Wolf Fitness YouTube channel, so we're going to edit this, and we'll hopefully have this up sometime next week.
Yep, absolutely.
So you guys will be able to watch the replay.
Especially the part about the 3 meals, because they don't eat breakfast, they sleep. You know, they get up and they're like those.
Yeah, they're-
I would say right now, even if you're having breakfast at like 11 a.m., if you could, but it's,
Plan it out, yeah.
yeah. But especially for athletes and things like this is just as important, you know, to be able to perform well.
I would say also it might make sense for you guys to use your free consultation with them.
Yeah, we could do like
to sit down as a family.